That's just exactly how God does it.
Exactly. Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Here we are again on a Tuesday night, um, discussing the summer of love. Tom's sermon or talk on Sunday was in 1 Corinthians 13, and he went through that and told us a little bit about training horses. Bill, you were there. How did it go?
It was good. When we went through the different things, it was nice to begin with the baptism. The young man who got baptized, that was always uh, a favorite of John's. Uh, he loves them all, but Keaton's a special special young man, and he's got a good heart. He really loves the Lord and has the heart for this life. He and we went. Of course, we went on and we had the Lord's Supper afterwards and a communion. When I was growing up, it was called the Lord's Supper, and one of the things I listened to John and I listened to Tom and I listened to Moody Broadcasting on the radio. And one of the things that has been hitting me with everybody that I've been listening to is that we're in training. So it's okay that we're where we're at because we are where we're at in our training. And today I was listening to a guy on the radio and he didn't say a thing about graduation. Into my head pops, and graduation is when you die and you're still not going to pick your clothes. And I was like, what? it, it was crazy. It was just one of those crazy moments with God that when I get the graduation part, and then all of a sudden it hit me. When you die, you don't pick your clothes, and when you graduate from high school, they give you this gown. This is what you'll wear. Somebody else picks your clothes. Well, at graduation, God already picked the new me. And the training that I'm getting now tonight, the group on the side here, they're we're all in training, all of us. It's these as Tom was talking about the different gifts. Again, the word training came up, and I keep going back to it's okay to be where I'm at because that's where I'm at in my training. So just go from there. Trust God. He knows what he's doing. He's got you where he wants you to be. Keep on keeping on in spite of what's going on. Tom, that was beautiful, man. Yes, you're a poet. And so we will expect a book of poetry.
Who knew? Well, it might be a really short book. A pamphlet, a flyer.
Well, I don't read a lot. I never was a good reader. So 3 pages is fine with me.
That's perfect for you then, Bill.
Yeah, perfect. To be empathetic, to have empathy was one of the things that when I went into law enforcement, it was real easy to just look at everybody as they're all guilty because I say so. And because you caught him on something. And, but the other thing that I was trained on was, Bill, you got to have some empathy for the people. You need to see where they're coming from, why. And through our career, you know, we were hard and became more and more hardened and less looking where they came from. Then all of a sudden, probably, let's see, I retired in probably in 2010, 2005, somewhere in there. We meet with a doctor at one of the schools here in town, and there's all kinds of people there: the sheriff, the chief, detectives, road patrol sergeants, lieutenants, all this. And this guy is a psychiatrist, real neat guy, just real down to earth. His demeanor was a lot like John Glenn's, that you could just listen to him talk forever. And knew how to make you laugh, knew how to get you through the moments that were testy. And he said something that made everybody in the room uncomfortable. And that was to ask the suspects, what was the first thing that led you down this road? Whether it was when you were a teenager, whether it was when you were 5 years old, what was the first thing that happened to you? So again, now I'm going back to have empathy, understand where they're coming from. Doesn't mean you're not going to do your job. You know, I still got a job to do. And if that means I have to put them in jail, then I have to put them in jail. But at least they understand, and I have something that I can put into my report, and the courts can start working on possibly getting this person some help. We have the ultimate help. We get to love them like Christ, and we get to offer them Christ, and they get to choose, because that's how God made them. And it doesn't matter what they've done. You said it, Tom. He never fails. Not one time does God fail. So stop fretting about what God has for you to do. There's no need for it. He knows exactly what he's doing. And when I fret about it, all I'm doing is looking at God and saying, you're a liar. You have no idea what you're doing. I know what needs to be done here. And I got this. So just leave me alone. I got it. And no, I don't fail every time. I fail a lot of the times, but I don't fail every time. Sometimes it actually works out. But ultimately, if I was able to look back and walk through the whole thing again, I'd probably find out that's exactly the trail God wanted me to go down, and exactly what God wanted me to do. But I thought I was running it. And with the gifts, to realize that, yes, the gifts are good. There's nothing wrong at all with them, but they are not what matters. Without love, without caring about that other individual, without loving that person, without love, it's useless. It doesn't matter anymore. The gift is almost null. And so with all the other stuff that I've had going on and learning and hearing from other people, that's what I heard in this on Sunday. That this training that we're going through, that's all of this. That's what all of it is about. And you keep saying it, Tom, at the end, relax. your homework, relax. And I know this is going to be hard for y'all to believe. I've actually started listening to it and relaxing and just letting go. And it's okay. There's peace there. If I want to keep it, there's no peace. That's what I saw, heard.
I'm letting that, you know, how Tom said, you know, you teach a horse a new command and it does it. And then you just stand there and let it soak in for a little bit. That's why I was quiet there, because that was pretty good, Bill. Jim, you got anything?
Yeah, it's a little premature, but I could go for it. Every time I read, it gives me something else. I can't keep writing. First thing I wanted to touch on, mainly to remind myself, but maybe somebody else hasn't heard it before. In 1 John chapter 4, it's in verse 8 and in verse 16. Talks about God is love. So, God is love. So now if you go to 1 Corinthians 13, starting with chapter 4, or chapter 13, starting with verse 4, since God is love, everywhere it says love, you can replace that with God. So, and what that's doing is it's showing us the true character of God. God suffers long and is kind. God does not envy. God does not parade himself, is not puffed up. And another word for puffed up is arrogant. Does not behave rudely, does not seek his own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, or keeps no account of evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. I love that one. Instead of saying, oh, that sucker, he got what he deserved. He doesn't do that. He bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. God never fails.
Amen.
So then I went down, and then I went back up, and I started at the beginning of the chapter 13. Though I speak with tongues of men and angels, but have not love, have not God. So now you could put God in that too. So I have become sounding brass or clanging cymbal, and though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith that I could remove mountains, but have not God, I am nothing. Wow. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not God, it profits me nothing. And I never put it there. I've always put it 4 through 8. But now, watch how it ties in. Verse 8, God never fails. But, and the key word there is but. Whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. Why? What's he trying to tell us there? For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, or another word for perfect is complete, then that which is in part will be done away. That's when we see Jesus face to face. I think that's when we're united with him. Okay. So he just talked about when we're united with Christ. Okay. Then he goes into when I was a child. So what's he trying to tell us? He's immature in his thinking towards his perception of God, towards the reality of how God works, thinks, and does. How he's immature in his understanding about how the definition of he's immature in his understanding on how things work, how the reality of how God set it up to work. So it's flesh or spirit. So we're either born again or we're not. So anyway, and when he became a man, or you might as well say, as God showed up in his life over and over and revealed himself, and he grew and matured in his identity, then okay. Then he put away the childish things, the immature thinking, and he started to see the truth of the reality of what's really going on, who God really is, who God made us to be, the reality of what's really going on in this world, how God is sovereign and in control at all times, all of that, right? So for now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. So now he understands that everything that we're doing now, we just got a glimpse compared to what it's going to be seeing him face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known.
Mm-hmm.
So now abide faith, hope, and love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Abide in God. But he's also talking about motives right there. The motives of the Spirit are faith, hope, and love, right? So that's as far as I got. I'll probably just put my foot in my mouth if I keep going.
All right. Do you want to put your foot in your mouth, or shall I take over? Because so far it was awesome, man.
Well, have you ever looked at it like that?
No, but it lines up with what I'm hearing in my head. It's the difference between the milk and the word and the meat of the word.
Yeah. See, when it's the
No.
milk, we've got to read it just as it is. But when it's the meat, you can start replacing the words with your own name on some of the stuff. You know, now I'm able to read things and put Bill in there and go, that's for me. That's meat.
See,
Before it was just information, just okay, good. He likes me. You know,
right.
My last to be point blank, I was bitching at God again. Okay.
Good.
Because this world is going to hell in a handbasket, and all of us believers are stuck suffering in it. And in my bitching, I was kind of being a brat saying, what about all of us? What about all the believers? What about all the innocent people that are trusting you and believing in you? You're making us suffer along with everybody else. How can you do that? Well, verse 4. God suffers long and is kind. He told me it was his long suffering. It's his will that none perish, but all come to repentance. That's why. And then so now if you want to bring that into reality, what if one of your kids or a family member or somebody that you know hasn't got saved yet? Well then, okay, don't come yet, because I'd rather, okay, yeah. See how it starts turning around?
Uh-huh.
Right. But it was kind of nice the way that he lovingly corrected me there. He just told me because he's long suffering.
Mm.
So it's a whole lot more longer than mine is.
Yeah.
You know, he has his reasons. So the question is, are we going to let all that stuff stop us from believing, or are we going to keep believing no matter what? Because it comes down to trusting God, period. You either trust him or you don't.
To go back and use Tom's story from Sunday when he's working with the horse.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cues that Tom's looking for when he's training the horse. Like he was saying, the tongue might come out, or the horse might start chewing, or the head in the beginning, the head's up like this, and he's freaking out. What the hell's going on? Like Jim just said, it comes back to trust. And if you're in a round pen, it might be the second or third go around session before that head and that neck starts coming down, and he starts to relax, because the whole time you're looking at the horse is looking at you to make sure it's safe to chill, make sure that there was a guy years ago, his name was Monty Roberts, and he made this thing called joining up.
Yeah.
And he said you couldn't have a relationship with a horse until the horse had joined up with you. And so bring that into the perspective of what Jim just shared, as far as changing the word love to God's name. I don't know about you guys, but I can't remember the last time I thought of God's personality. Now, I talk to him on a regular basis, but that shone some light on the person that I'm looking at. A lot of times I'm talking about what's going on in the world, or what's going on in my life, or there's been times in my relationship with God where I'm sitting there and I'm just enjoying the communion, enjoying the relationship. But what I'm finding in myself is there's so many my conditioning is so legalistic because of experience. When you started using the horse analogy, Tom, I tried that. I built a round pen when I lived in Okeechobee. We had a few horses, and it was scary being that close to some of these big horses, especially when they don't know what the hell you're doing and you don't know what the hell you're doing. And I'd run back inside and either read the book or watch a video, or and really to bring it into our relationship with God, to make a decision to turn your will and your life over to God as you understand it. You don't. It's a supernatural revelation from Him. The question is, in whatever the circumstance you're in, whatever the difficulty you're in, or whatever you're trying to quote unquote deal with, the fact that you're not happy where you're at, it's like Bill was saying about with the training. If you're not happy where you're at, that's the only time you'll want change, and that's the Lord and the Holy Spirit in our lives creating the desire to change. We can't even do that. We're powerless. So I'm starting to realize that I can say I trust him, but do I really?
Yeah.
Because I was talking to Jim about some stuff that's been going on, and I realized that I've been in like an alarm stage for quite a while, almost 6 months, maybe more, and totally functioning, totally, as far as I know. I mean, you guys have seen me, and the circumstance is over, and I'll go into detail when it's really over. And I was telling Jim before we got on, Cindy and I had a closing in Lake Mary yesterday. So we went up Sunday, stayed in Mount Dora. So we did the walk through Sunday and then went to the hotel. And so we're driving up there Sunday, and man, I am in this funk. It's like I should be excited. These kids, first time home buyers, are going to see this house. They're going to, we're going to close. They're all excited. They're friends. The husband is well, they're both friends of ours. And I'm in this funk because I'm starting to realize, I don't know if you've seen it in the Alpha series, there's an alarm stage, it's all emotions, the resistance stage, and the resistance stage can go on for years. Something's happened where there's fight or flight, talking to horses. Fight or flight. So here you are, you're at this heightened state of, this is normal, and here you are, and you start this resistance stage, and the walls are up, and everything's a booby trap, and you're on guard. Well, then you go along this resistance stage, and all of a sudden down you come into this state of exhaustion. And I think that's where I was on Saturday, because there was no emotion. Well, there was. It was like, whatever, however you can describe that. But in the midst of that, I know I've been loving people. In the midst of that, I know that I've been hearing God's voice. In the midst of that, we've been talking, and the way you presented it on Sunday, Tom, you were so chilled, and there was no hey, take it or leave it. If you want to love other people, you can love them. And that's really what it boils down to, because like we were saying before, whether you believe that it's in you or not, you're going to love other people because of what God says and what he's done for you that you can't do for yourself. He's killed the old man who couldn't love. It's impossible for them to love. And like Bill was saying, the training is us coming to the realization of what God says about us is true. And I think what Jim was describing was glory to glory. Death, burial, resurrection, death, burial, resurrection. So you start here and you finish, you finish somewhere around here, and then you go on to glory. But it's a continual renewing of the mind, walking in newness of life, because you're not looking to fulfill the needs of the flesh anymore, which is saving your own arse, trying to get your needs met. You're walking in newness of life, letting the Holy Spirit do for you what you can't do for yourself. And that's the milk of the word. The milk is this way, the meat is this way when you start giving that away, because that is one of your needs. You know, that's on the top of the hierarchy of needs. And we can't screw that up. If you're so okay, so what does that look like? If you're walking down the street, or you know, people don't walk in the street in Florida because it's too hot. But if you're in Publix or a you know a food store, and you're supposed to love someone, you will relax, right, Tom? Relax, chill. It's going to happen, despite your flesh, despite whatever's on your mind, despite you. Because of all those love, like Jim says, you can replace that word with God, but you can also replace it with Patrick, Sharon, Bill, Michelle. Those are the people that are commenting on the side here. But what I'm saying is you can replace it with your name. Because that's how God sees your personality. That's the personality that he's given you to fulfill the law. So another thing another gift that when you ask Christ in your life is he says that you can hear him. That for me was, I'm good. If you want to give me gifts, I'll take them. Oh, by the way, they're already in you. He'll activate them. He'll initiate them when and if you need them.
Yeah.
See, religion will tell you there's a hierarchy. God will tell you he's given you everything you need. As you sit here watching this, you have absolutely everything you need to love someone else the way he wants you to love them. You don't have to tithe. You don't have to do anything. It's what do you want to do?
Well,
So,
with what you're saying, I can't help but go back before creation and recognize now that he knew me. And that when he created the new me, he created the new me with everything I would need for simple, small things like my dog dying, the car blowing up, needing a home for my family, and talking to somebody about the Savior. Big thing. But then again, needing a home for my family was a big thing at the time. And so when we come forward and we're there, it's like we're moving along and we've got everything. What is it? Everything according to life and godliness? Is that how the verse goes? I've given you everything according to life and godliness, I think is how it goes. Anyhow, that's close. But point being, it's the word given. He's already done it. Whether I'm at the age, I don't know how else to say that, but whether I'm at the growth point to recognize it or not is a whole different thing. And when you were saying that, I was thinking, it's amazing because everything that you're saying is so very true, and it's true at every stage, every year of our growth, however you want to word that. As we grow, it's all still there and it's ready for us. He's completely ready for us and was back then. He knew, he knows, he will know because he's God. And I can relax, Tom. I can relax in that. I can rest.
Don't you love it? Mm.
You know, that's a whole different subject.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do I? Can I? Yes, I can. And when I recognize it and when I accept it, it's amazing. And this morning, simple things. I had things to do. Didn't feel real good. Nothing bad, but just didn't feel real good, and was completely at peace to go back to bed. Went back to bed, slept for a couple hours, got up. Time to get at it. It was 12:15, hottest part of the day, and here I went. And that's not tooting my own horn. That's just God saying, "Okay, there's your rest. Let's go. Let's get it done." And just him and I, and listening to Tom on Sunday, and listening to a couple other things, and it's just so different than what it used to be. You know, I appreciate. I mean, there's times when I certainly wish God would take all that from the past, all the memories, and just make them disappear. No memory of it. But because I know that, it helps me to appreciate all the more what I get every day and what he's made me to be, because he's done it. It ain't got squat to do with me.
I think that's the beauty of it, and that's the when you rest in that security and that significance.
Yeah.
That enables you to love other people.
Yeah.
You know,
And what you said earlier about God talking to us, the
Right.
first thing I thought of was the first thing that I thought of when I first heard that God would talk to me was, why in the hell would God want to talk to me?
Absolutely. Right there with you.
That's the truth. You
Yeah.
know, okay, he saved me. Thank you. I appreciate that. But okay, you don't know. Yeah, he does. But in my little pea-brain mind, I appreciate the salvation, but you don't know. So, okay, you talk to John Glenn or Pastor Tweedale from my past, or to my wife because she's a saint, or whatever. But now I'm still amazed that he talks to me. But
if I'm honest, back in the day, it was, he doesn't want to talk to me.
yeah,
But really, behind the curtain, what I was thinking was, oh shit, I hope he doesn't want to talk to me, because
What did you say?
yeah, what's he going to ask me, and what does he want to talk
Yeah.
about? Because
That's
there's
right.
some stuff down there, man, I ain't talking about. You know what I mean?
nope, not to you because you're perfect.
You know, if I tell, honestly, what I was doing, I was projecting this way up this way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because nobody knew nothing this way
No.
back then, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it came out. Well, what? I haven't heard God's voice yet, but we're working on it. He's probably this and he's probably that. But really, what was going on is I was absolutely petrified. My perception of God was so far from reality, and really that's the really, I guess that's what I was talking about all along, was coming to the realization that he's not going to condemn you. Yeah, I can read that in the Bible, and I can quote all these scriptures just like anybody else, but when life is hitting the proverbial fan and he shows up and shows you who he is,
Yeah.
I guess I'm saying what Jim said earlier. That's what creates the change. That's what creates the relaxation you mean he still loves me? You know, do you mean he wants to sit here and chat with me? You mean he, you know, because ultimately in our conditioning, we haven't performed correctly, we haven't thought correctly, we haven't whatever. But that's the beauty of the gospel. It's not based on our performance, it's based on his, and there's nothing that can separate us from that. But we don't believe that until we experience it.
Yeah.
And that's intimacy. That's a level of intimacy that I never knew existed. You know, that's a you know, I'm talking at 100 miles an hour, and there's probably 40,000 yeah buts in there, and he's going, shh, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
Be still and know I'm God. And I'm going, yeah, but the what? You know, it's all caving in on me. Shh.
Yep.
How are you doing right here, right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I've
I'm
come
not
to
talking-
recognize that work out your own salvation with fear and trembling is way simpler than we religiously make it to be. It's every time I come up on something and he saves me again. Not salvation, not my soul. I'm already going to heaven. That's
Right.
done. He said it on the cross. It is finished.
Right.
But it's the next thing. It's my doubt. It's my fear.
Right.
It's my fear this time. Because fear
Right.
is the thing that keeps coming up and keeps coming up and keeps coming up. It's all fear.
Right.
All the negative things that happen in me are fear based because I'm just not sure he's big enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's yoke burns.
Yeah.
The fear and trembling is yoke burns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
And here I am fighting, just biting a bit, Tom, to go a different direction.
You guys are all getting the horse analogies. I'm impressed.
And I never
No,
had
really.
a
So next week's class will be in the round pen,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and we'll all be riding.
yeah, yeah. Actually,
Yeah,
I'm
We'll
working.
all have to
I'm
get a
working on that.
background. We'll all have to get a background with a round pen behind
Yeah,
us.
there you go. Yeah. And if I do write a book, it'll probably be something along those lines. You mentioned Monty Roberts. He was, he's still around, but his influence on so many of the great modern horse trainers of today cannot be underestimated. He was primarily an English trainer, but it doesn't matter. It still doesn't matter what kind of tack you're using. It's still a horse. And and you guys were just talking about the whispering, and I think that's where the same attitude of the horse whispering concept came along. It's just that gentle persistence, that love that's the actual, the horse is looking at us a lot more carefully than we're looking at the horse. And he's looking for BS with everything that's in him. He's looking for a reason not to trust us with everything that's in him. So we have to be very consistent with our approach. And to use a John Glenn expression, I remember a number of years ago, John and I were both learning a lot about horses. He was spending some time round penning some colts and things like that. And we were comparing notes. And, he basically called what we were learning the gospel for horses. That there was good news for horses. It didn't have to be that way. It didn't have to be intimidation and forcing, anything. That, it's the same method that really God uses in dealing with us so many times. It's really cool. So that's kind of my connection there. But you guys have really kicked it up a notch. I really, the comments you're making tonight, the observations and the things that God's showing you are really kicking it up for me quite a bit. And I haven't heard anything tonight that didn't think was just spot on. So I really appreciate it. And I did, Martin, if you could, if I can put you on the spot, unless that thought is, like me, sometimes those thoughts go, but you were talking about gifts in the context of a hierarchy, a religious hierarchy. And could you elaborate on that?
So I was involved with some people a long time ago now, but they didn't consider you a Christian until you'd spoken in tongues.
Mm.
So all you focused on was speaking in tongues.
Yep.
So there were people walking around exercising their tongues, going blah, 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 blah. Right? I mean, I've tripped on acid, but that was funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was I actually had this is sad. I might cry at this one.
Mhm.
I had a friend of mine that he went through the Lamb, and he ended up working with me when we did tile. And Dennis Noyes was his name. He died of cancer, and he was in a halfway house thing when he died, and he wouldn't let me come and see him. I didn't know where he was until after the fact, and they invited me to the funeral. And it was a very religious program, and they asked me to speak, and I got up and spoke and told them about Dennis. And
In English?
yeah,
I'm sorry.
and no. And I was kind of in the middle, and all I had seen was religion,
Sad.
and it, if you didn't have a word from God, you hadn't arrived yet. And there were people having words left and right about somebody else, and it was by the end of the night, it was nothing to do with how Dennis had loved these people. It was the people that were in the program showing off to the staff members and anybody else that wanted to listen to prove how spiritual they were. They'd start a sentence with, God came to me in my sleep last night in a vision. And it wasn't about what God said. It was the fact that he had showed up in a vision. You know what I'm saying? It was
Right.
versus, the analogy of you drive a car that you don't know if it's going to start the next time you go to start it at 90 mile an hour because you're trying to prove a point. But then when you get in a Ferrari, you do the speed limit. Well, we're all driving Ferraris, but do you realize it? We've got it made. We've been blessed with every spiritual blessing.
Yeah.
And you will prophesy when and if God sees fit. John said the guaranteed prayer request, Lord, help me love someone else today.
Yep.
Guaranteed prayer request. That was the
Yeah.
And there's no gray. It's black and white. The question is, are you willing? Do you want to? Do you want to be used? Do you want to be that vessel that's willing to do whatever it takes? Because it isn't God's lack of ability. It's our desire. Oh, I'll do that, but I won't do that. And that's just maturity. That's like Bill was saying, the training. The training is, like Jim said, us trusting him. He's got it down. He's the trainer of all trainers.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yes, in part. If you don't mind, I'd like to expand on that, kind of what it means to me as well.
Yeah, man.
That, religiously, we have it in our minds. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, I also knew Dennis, and he was quite a likable fellow,
Yes.
and he had a tremendous sense of humor,
Yeah.
and some literary talent. And
Yeah.
he
He
wrote
wrote a book. Yeah.
he wrote a piece that was quite good,
Yeah.
and it was, there was a gospel connection there, but he was quite funny, had a way with words. But again, that was his gift. So with respect to gifts, I think religiously we have in our mind that the people with the gift of teaching, and I'll use myself as an example, the gift of teaching or preaching, somehow people want to elevate them to this highest end of the hierarchy, and people that have gifts of tongues and gifts of prophecy, they want to elevate, and that's really, really backwards. I think the truth of the gospel is that the teachers, the preachers, the people with the recognized gifts are really at the bottom of the hierarchy.
The servants.
The only purpose for those gifts is for the benefit of the people at the top of the hierarchy, which, if you want to put it in the term we often use, is the newbies, the baby Christians. And the Lord had me several weeks ago start, when we call the kids up on Sunday, to pray for them, to start recognizing them as the VIPs. In other words, they were the most important people there, the youngsters, the babies, partly because they had the longest way to go in this life, and it's a hard road, as we've been talking about. So we really need to focus our attention on them. But at the same time, to the baby Christian or the immature Christian, regardless chronologically what age they are, they're the most important ones, and the only reason for any gifts whatsoever is to be supportive of them, and it's also a numbers thing, because, corporately, and, we're conditioned to think that, at the top of any organization, here's the president, and he's at the apex of the pyramid. And then you go down the line and you got the vice presidents and you got, all the other big shots, and everybody's clawing their way to the top to be the the greatest. And at the very bottom is all the peons, all pawns, and they're the least important. Well, in my understanding, within the church, that's totally upside down. It's totally upside down. And it also makes a lot of sense because it's a numbers thing. Because when it comes to love, the interpersonal relationships that are necessary for the love of God to really be expressed, horizontally, as you were saying, they require a lot of time. And you can only have really close interpersonal relationships with a very small handful of people at any given time, which means that the pastor or the leader, the teacher, whoever's at the top, there's no way he can do that work because it requires so many. Now he can equip and teach and demonstrate, and he's always going to have his own handful of individuals that he's going to deal with closely at any given time. But for God's love to really make a difference in this world, it's going to take all those baby Christians learning to love one another. And I really think that has been the goal of Alpha Ministries all along, is to equip the saints. That's every one of these baby Christians, or everybody, no matter where we are in our developmental journey, as Bill was talking about, to equip each of us, to be effective and actually produce the product. As the example I used of what do we do here, Lord? What's our business? What's our product? Love. So we can produce the product. That's how it's going to happen. So my excitement is I see it happening right before my eyes, and that is really cool. I'm really, and I'll tell you I'll be honest, another little secret. I got up there Sunday. Well, it's really started about Saturday morning, having no clue what I was going to say. I knew we were in studying love, and I knew it was going to have something to do with that. But last week, for whatever reason, I really put a lot of effort into studying, and the more I studied, I mean, I learned a lot, but I had nothing to say. I mean, I just didn't know what I was going to say. And finally, by about Saturday afternoon, I said, Lord, and then what ends up happening, something will come along that will require my attention. I'm like, oh no, I was going to study on Saturday afternoon. Well, Saturday afternoon, something comes along, and here I am. I haven't studied anymore. I still don't have a word. And I realized that, okay, Lord, I'm being real honest about this. I'm worried about looking stupid, so you got to give me something here. And then the thought came over me. He says, aren't you excited about what I'm going to say through you? Don't you have aren't you anxious to hear what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do through you? And that was like, I realized, like, dang, you know what? There is an excitement in that to not have a clue, but show up anyways, and I had no idea I was going to talk about horses or any of that stuff. I mean, I've used all that stuff in the past, but I had no idea. And I'm really going to try to operate with that humility. I mean, doesn't mean I'm going to stop studying, but I realize that it's him, not me. So I can't. I realized that everything I've ever said that was true, I plagiarized. In other words, it's not up to me to come up with anything.
Right.
If I'm not the creator, God's the creator.
Right.
So, boy, I mean, it really it's humility in one form, but it's also lets you off the hook. Because otherwise, you're putting yourself on the hook, trying to be somebody, and you're not. So, to me, God showed up again, just right on time, and all I did was just be there.
Cool, man.
Which means that I was able to relax.
Yeah.
And not just be so. I got to do my own homework, and that throughout the week, as it gets closer and closer to Sunday or whatever it is God's got me to do, I need to not fret. I need to relax, not be anxious.
But see, the thing is, and Jim, I can't remember the saying that you've used a number of times, but I think when you speak or when you're, when the Lord uses you, 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with it. You're having to believe the gospel for yourself.
Yeah.
And I know me and I know Jim, because I know all of us. We use ourselves as an example. We're not going, you need to do this, you need to do.
Right.
No. Hey, let me tell you what I just went through. I thought the whole world was going to cave in on me, but then God showed up and he saved my stupid ass,
Yep.
And
there's nothing like a personal testimony.
No, but see, the thing is, you can have a personal testimony to toot your own horn, or you can.
No, I get that.
A personal testimony, but see, it's important to know the difference. We can have a personal testimony where you were hanging by your finger from the rope, and then all of a sudden, here's God. He comes in and he saves you.
Yeah.
Not because you were believing, not because you were, Superman or Superwoman, but because that's what he's promised to do for you from before you were born. Why did he do it? Because he wants to show you how much he loves you so that you can believe it the next time.
Yeah. I'm sometimes reluctant to use personal testimony because I don't want to make it about me. But on the other side of it is that no one can argue with your own testimony. They can argue with your interpretation of scripture. They can argue with your doctrine, but they didn't live it. You did. So they can't argue with that.
You know what? I mean, maybe I used to worry. I mean, I do. I still worry about what people think, but maybe I'm so far at the other end. If it's coming from my heart and you can't receive it, that's not my problem. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
if it's like when Jim and I are doing a group, you can ask any question you want, but you're going to sit around for the answer, not because we're big and bad or anything like that, but because it's going to be the truth. And sometimes, like I said in the beginning about not really wanting to hear God's voice, we don't want to hear the truth. You know, life might suck, and we might be going down the tubes, or we might be, grieving. When my dad died, Jim didn't say anything, but he sent a song. I was in England, and he sent me a song. And again, like you said, sometimes you'll use words. He sent me a song, and it opened me up. It filleted me just the way it needed to, so he could come in and love me. He didn't know. He knew that my dad had died, but he didn't know where I was at that time. But God did. And I guess that's what I'm saying, Tom, with why did Jim send that song? Because he heard it, he thought it was good, and I came to mind. He does it all the time.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it'll pull the rug out from underneath me and stop me in my tracks, and it'll be, oh, thank you, God. That's loving someone else. He doesn't call up, and I'm not tooting Jim's horn, but he doesn't follow up with a phone call going, wow, the Lord, showed up in my dream last night and told me to send you this song. It's like, man, did you get that? What do you think of that? Because it was good for me. This is what it did for me. What did it do for you, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Can I share something?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
It's just a little bit off the subject, but not quite, because it kind of lines up. I've been talking to the Lord lately about pride and how even a lot of times trying my hardest to believe the gospel for myself, that motivation is coming from pride in the flesh. I didn't really know it until he showed me. But I'll give you an example. There's times that I've been hurt, or I got hurt doing something, and it's like, well, let me help you up. No, I got this. The pride kicks in. I'm not going to let that beat me. Right? So so the Lord's been showing me, because he's doing a number on me lately, and pride's one of it. So I said, okay, well then, what if you're in war? What if we're in the middle of, you got the enemy trying to kill you, shooting at you? How do you bow up with pride to, save your own ass? Are you in survival? What's another word for that? If it's, what's the difference? What would the word be coming from divine love, coming from his perspective, right? And the only thing I could come up with was courage. And it's like, I don't know. I don't think that's the right word, but it might be. So my morning devotion this morning, okay? Listen to this. Hope and courage go hand in hand. When you are waiting for longed for answers to prayer, it takes courage to continue hoping in me. The world, the flesh, the devil all tell you it's easier to just give up and give in to dull disappointment. In a sense, this is true. To keep praying with positive expectation requires a lot of effort and perseverance. Giving up is momentarily easier. However, a resigned, I give up attitude is always hurtful in the long run. Often this leads to cynicism and eventually to despair. So it's well worth the effort to keep your hopefulness alive. courage comes from the French word for heart. Since I live in your heart, you can call upon me to help you live courageously, facing adversity or danger with confidence and determination. I am well aware of your circumstances, and I take pleasure in helping you cope with them. So stand firm in my strength, beloved, refusing to give in or give up. I take pleasure in you always, but especially when you are bravely hoping in my steadfast love. So he answered it, yes, it is courage, but it's also his strength. So I'm telling you, when he becomes everything, without him, we're nothing. Without him, we're done. There's no way. You're done. So anything that we do that is in his strength, it's in his identity, it's in his way. Anyway,
That's freedom. That's
I-
freedom.
I wanted to share that because it made me feel good. He called, waiting and hoping in him courageous.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of us being caught in his long suffering right now. We're all, look at even the whole creation, all the trees, all the earth, everything is groaning, waiting for his redemption, waiting for him to come back. The whole creation, not just the human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Good point.
yeah.
Yeah, this old earth is groaning, and without people think that we can save it without God. Like somehow mankind has the ability to fix it. That's a lie.
Mhm.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we were so smart, why do we continue to build on top of the tectonic plates? Just waiting for that, and we know they're going to slip, and it just you hear. I enjoy the Science Channel on TV, and I think I enjoy it because of the stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
I
No one
enjoy-
stops and thinks of what killed the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if the dinosaurs were around, could we save them? Now that we're so smart. I mean, the cavemen weren't smart enough, but now we are, so we could save them.
Yeah. So now they want to bring them back. Yeah, really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's put it in your backyard. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? It's easier to talk about everybody else and judge them. That way I don't have to do with my own crap.
That's right.
And that's why we have this, because we can look at ourselves in all of this that we learn, and I can look at me and see that God has given me something to share, not me. So this isn't something that I've mustered up, that Well, Tom, you just said something that I heard John say, God, maybe 100 times. He had nothing. Didn't know what he was going to speak about. And he might have even been on like the book of John or whatever. And so obviously he's going to speak about those next verses, but still had nothing. So far, he had been given nothing until he stood up there. Just show up.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the reason why he was attractive. You know what I mean? In that sense of the word.
Yeah.
He wasn't
Real.
He did well, yeah, but let's classify that a little bit. I mean,
yeah,
it's a
to
good word.
me,
Empty. He was empty.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And it wasn't, there was no pride, I mean, when it came to loving other people, he always came at me from the standpoint of you've got whatever you want, but if there's anything I can do or Alpha Ministry can do to help you, let me know.
Yeah.
There was no, oh, did you read your Alpha book, or did you read? No. He was believing the gospel for you,
Mhm.
even though you weren't capable of believing it for yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was the beauty of the beauty of him and Alpha Ministries. As far as anybody, and that for me is what is the legacy, is like you're saying, Tom. We'll believe the gospel for you until you can believe it for yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what
You know?
Paul was getting at when he said, I will see no man after his flesh.
Right.
I may not, I may not see the whole picture clearly. Like Jim, you talked about, seeing dimly through a glass at the end of the chapter 13 there, and then, someday we'll be seen as we are seen. We'll be known as we are known. But what we were not able to see, we took on faith because God says it was true. That, that each of us is that brand new creature in Christ.
Mm.
That, we are God's beloved child in whom he's well pleased, in spite of our flesh, and I think that's so key. I mean, it's the only healthy way to relate to other people is not to see them as their flesh, but to see them as God sees them, even though we don't know everything, and we don't. I mean, he keeps telling me that we're just scratching the surface here. Just scratching the surface.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good that we don't know it all. It's
got to be
good or bad. Good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, man. So, when Jim and I got on here first, before any of you showed up, we went, "Have you got anything for tonight?" And Jim goes, "Yeah, I got a little bit." So I showed him my page.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. You got a paper.
No, he had the little bit.
Yeah.
I had nothing. Yeah, it was like, man, I haven't got anything here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You were talking about being real. When I first started doing the Cowboy Church broadcast, I was very intimidated by looking at a computer and trying to talk, but I was convinced that I was just going to just do that and see what came out, and if the dog started barking, or if somebody knocked on the door, or my telephone rang, all that, I was not going to get worried about any of that, because I wanted people. I said it over and over again. What you see is what you get. I wanted to just be me being honest, just me, just like two people having a cup of coffee together, and being real, and because if I went back and redid something or dubbed something in, or I didn't even want to add too many supporting things, like, the things that StreamYard will let you do. I didn't want it to be some slick production, and I still don't, because if you want that, there's plenty of TV preachers, and I don't know if you guys are like me, but I hate watching them. So we don't need another TV preacher,
No.
And that's not what I feel like I'm about. So yeah, just getting on here, and even if there's a blooper, even if there's an off-color word that slips out, you know what? It's just real. It's just being.
You keep bringing that up. I keep apologizing.
I was not. You are being overly sensitive. See? Yeah.
Shut up,
overly
Jim.
Sensitive. No, we're just being honest. No pretenses. I mean,
No, man.
Yeah.
No. That's what was so attractive. When I first. Listen to me. When I first came around, when I was first introduced to the gospel, man, I was in a kitchen at Terry and Betty Morris's house, and I met a guy that flew bales of cocaine from Colombia to America. I met a guy that was a bank robber. I mean, all these different people, and here they are telling me how much Jesus loves them. And when the light bulb came on, it changed their life.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was high, drunk, and yet they let me in their living room and just loved me right where I was at. You know, like you were saying, Tom, about, you know, the newbie. I mean, I was so on the fence. I wasn't even in the house. You know what I'm saying? It was a house church. I was sitting in the living room, but a buddy of mine was a bartender on the walk home, you know, and the Bible study finished at 9 or whatever, and I'd usually crawl in the door about 11. And they just loved me, man. They just loved me right where I was at. Didn't tell me to change. Didn't tell me to, you know, here's the food. Here's the, you know, you need to make a phone call. Anybody in England want to, you know, need to hear from you. Here's the phone. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And people's testimonies, you know, it was like, it was so powerful. It wanted me to try it, you know. And anyway, so yeah, I can relate with what you were saying about the people that are standing at the door. I'd like to be the one opening the door going, do you want to come in? You know, because it's good in here. We got air conditioning. We got all kinds of goodies, you know.
You could be a greeter at Walmart. That would be a great.
I'm no good in blue, you know what I mean? It's like the whole waistcoat thing, you know. And yeah.
No, I know how Martin.
I see a special future for you, Martin.
Oh God, I hope that's not a prophetic word, Tom.
We got to have fun.
All things to all people.
There
you
you go. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, and thank you for coming to Walmart. No, I'm kidding.
Attention.
So
Walmart.
get your. Never mind.
Yeah. Attention, Kmart shoppers. Yeah.
So
Wow.
you just got to remember what happened to the guy that lost his whole left side.
What's that?
What?
He's all right now.
And he caught a fish this big.
Yep. Time to go.
Yeah, it's 8:20.
All right.
Yeah, we're
All right.
there.
Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you for Holy Spirit showing up and keeping it under control.
That's funny you say that, and there's Virginia.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's Gail. Hey, Gail.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Let's take a look at who else was with us.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to go down that list?
Sure. There's Grandma, Virginia, Barbara Kelly, Crystal Sims, Sandy Glenn, Michelle McMillan, Bill Dillahay, Sharon Hudson, Patrick Zent. Thank you all for being here tonight. We love you.
Yeah,
For
all the
everybody
people
else that's out there that's not on that list, we love you.
Yeah. Yep.
Jesus loves you right where you are.
So Sunday morning, Cowboy Church at what, 9, Tom? 9-ish?
9-ish. I try to do 9 when I can.
Okay.
We'll be here at 11.
Reach Community Church at 9 in Fort Pierce, Bob Jernigan and Dave Shields. And then Freedom Ranch at 11. Also, Peggy just showed up. Thanks for joining us, Peggy.
Hey, Peggy.
I think that's it. Same back time, same back place. Thanks for joining us. Same back channel. Don't get legalistic on me. Talk to you next week.